For years, listeners and engineers have used the phrase loudness war to describe an argument about how recorded music is presented. But the phrase can make the story sound simpler than it is. Loudness is not a single knob, and louder is not one stable measurement. It can refer to a subjective impression, a measured average over time, or the height of the signal's peaks. This film is not a scorecard for old records or a verdict on a particular era. It is a guide to the questions behind the argument: what gets measured, what gets changed, and who makes those decisions. Start with a useful distinction. A peak is the highest point reached by a signal. Average program loudness describes loudness over a program rather than just its tallest instantaneous moments. The European Broadcasting Union's technical guidance treats program loudness, maximum true peak, and loudness range as separate measures. That separation matters because two pieces of audio can approach similar peak limits while producing different impressions of average loudness. Peak normalisation can make peaks uniform without making loudness uniform. Imagine two drawings of a landscape. In each, the highest mountain reaches the same line at the top of the page. One landscape is mostly low valleys. The other is a high plateau with only small rises and falls. Their highest point matches, but the space below it is shaped differently. That is also why technical language needs care. The EBU recommends program loudness as a basis for normalization in its broadcast program context, and its R128 recommendation specifies a target of -23 LUFS for that context. But that broadcast program target is not a general rule for all music production or listening situations. The words normalization and compression can also become misleading shortcuts. The EBU describes loudness normalization as addressing average program loudness. It does not require loudness inside a program to remain constant from moment to moment. Its guidance also distinguishes source signal normalization from metadata-driven gain, ranging in consumer playback. What a listener experiences depends on which method is being used and where in the chain it is applied. This is where the story moves from an abstract measurement problem to a practical listening problem. A playback service can measure material and apply a gain adjustment during playback. Spotify's artist documentation, for example, says that its normal setting uses a -14 dB LUFS playback adjustment, that uploaded files are measured but not altered before playback, and that louder masters can receive negative gain. Those statements describe Spotify's documented behavior, not a universal behavior shared by every service, device, setting, or playback path. So what should we conclude when a track seems less forceful after a playback adjustment? One possible interpretation is that level matching can expose differences that were previously masked by simple loudness. Neither interpretation proves that one master is objectively better, because preference, context, and the details of the playback chains still matter. The evidence here establishes a documented playback mechanism at one platform. It does not settle an argument about taste. The historical story needs the same restraint. Scholar Kyle Devine argues that debates over loudness long predate digital audio. That context cautions against telling a neat tale in which one technology suddenly invented every concern listeners now associate with the loudness war. It does not establish that every modern release became louder, that all producers pursued the same goal, or that loudness is inherently harmful. A more defensible history is less dramatic. Arguments about desirable loudness have had predecessors, while the tools and institutions surrounding recorded sound have changed. Why, then, does the subject still produce such strong language? Perhaps because it sits where measurement and meaning meet. A meter can describe program loudness, peaks, and range as different quantities. A playback setting can document a gain adjustment. But a listener may be asking a broader question. Does the music feel open, dense, urgent, fatiguing, intimate, or alive? Those are real experiences. yet they are not interchangeable with a single meter reading. Treating them as identical can turn a technical discussion into a false certainty. This does not mean measurement is useless. Measurements can make a conversation more precise by showing which question is actually under discussion. Is the concern peak level? Is it average program loudness? Is it the amount of change across a program? Or is it a playback system's gain behavior? Confusion begins when an answer designed for one question is used as if it solved all the others. Consider the difference between controlling a source and controlling playback. Source signal normalization changes the signal before it reaches the listener. Metadata-driven gain-ranging uses accompanying information to guide playback gain. The EBU identifies these as distinct approaches. It does give us a better way to describe what is happening. Are we discussing the audio file itself, or the level at which a system chooses to present it? There is a similar boundary around platform guidance. Spotify's documentation is valuable precisely because it is specific. It explains a named setting, a stated reference point, and a playback stage adjustment. It cannot demonstrate how another service, device configuration, or mode behaves. When people say streaming turns everything down, the more careful follow-up is. Which service, which setting, and what does that service actually document? The EBU material offers another lesson in precision. It says peak normalization can produce uniform peaks with varying loudness, and it frames loudness normalization around average program loudness rather than constant loudness within a program. It does not prescribe a flat emotional contour. If we hear a passage become quieter or louder within a work, that movement is not automatically evidence that normalization has failed. The stated purpose is not to erase every within-program difference. The loudness war conversation often asks technology to deliver a moral judgment. The sources reviewed here do not answer those questions as universal rules. They offer measurement frameworks, a broadcast recommendation, a documented platform behavior, and historical context. Any claim that one numerical target guarantees artistic quality would go beyond that evidence. Any claim that a platform adjustment ends the debate would go beyond it too. A better ending may be a better set of questions. What exactly is being measured? In what context was a target designed? Is a change happening to the source or during playback? Is a claim about one named platform or about all listening? And are we describing a technical property or expressing a preference? These questions do not drain the drama from music. They make room for a more honest kind of listening, one that can hold measurement and judgment apart long enough to understand both. The loudness war, then, may be less like a single battle with a final winner and more like a recurring negotiation. The verified record does not support a simple declaration that the issue began in one moment, applies in one way everywhere, or has been solved by one standard. What it supports is narrower and more useful. Peaks and average loudness are different. Normalization methods differ. A broadcast recommendation has a defined context, and Spotify documents particular playback behavior with stated limits. The rest is a continuing question for makers and listeners, answered best with specificity rather than slogans.